Welcome to another scintillating show on Rising Above Shadows of Abuse. Russell. I'm your host, Grace Ovba. Today I have the adorable and compassionate Lisa Marie Anzaldua. How can mindfulness and meditation bring about deeper healing, improve mental health, and promote sustained well-being?
Yeah, so for all those various reasons, you start to have increased emotional intelligence, your emotional mastery. You start to feel as though you're not alone in this universe and that you're being guided by something bigger. Your heart energy center starts to expand, because those walls that have been built around it are no longer there, out of protection that were built, are no longer there. And so you show up more authentically and you align with your values, and that is wellness, right? That's well-being.
I think from what you've just shared, it also promotes your mental health, because when you're self-aware, you will know what is good for you and what is not good for you. In terms of certain relationships, we talked about boundaries earlier on.
Right, so self-aware is also accepting that I don't deserve to have this person treat me this way. For instance, if you're self-aware, you start to hear beliefs like, this isn't to say my ex was, you start to hear things like, you hear yourself say things like, well, I would leave, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. And you start to realize, isn't that an interesting belief? Why don't I try to revisit this belief? And maybe there's some flexibility there. Maybe that's not actually true. Maybe I could replace that with, if I leave them, they're going to be okay, because they're choosing to be abusive. And I'm choosing to not be in a dynamic to be hurt. So I have to surrender the belief that if I leave them, I'm going to hurt them. So you start to become that kind of self-aware. Your perception of what's occurring starts to change. There are other ways of being more self-aware, which I can go into, but maybe this is getting too, all over the place. But it's with respect to the beliefs of our ego system that cause suffering. We become more aware of those things, those thoughts, so that we can start transmuting them. Yeah, so that inevitably impacts your boundaries, right? Because if you release that belief that I can't leave him because I'm going to hurt his feelings and can't survive without me, or whatever it is, or I can't survive without him, whatever that false belief is, you start to realize that it's false. Right? And then your perception of self and the situation starts to change, and you make different decisions.
Well, in essence, it's challenging and countering those negative intrusive thoughts that filter into your subconscious to say, should I leave? Is he going to be okay? And then in so doing, when you challenge and counter those negative intrusive thoughts, invariably you're also fine-tuning your mindset into positivity, I presume. That's what
let's say, what was the example you just gave? You said, what was it? You said, should I leave? What did you say?
Essentially, if you are having this negative, irrational thoughts, you have to counter them. You challenge them and then counter them. In so doing, you are activating a positive outlook.
Yes, absolutely. And one way is, there's only a little bit of caution with this is, let me just say that one way you can start challenging them is you could start saying things like, is that actually true? Is it actually true? Am I creating this story in my mind? Yeah. There are certain thoughts and beliefs, however, that are rooted in unresolved trauma that needs healing first. Otherwise, it'll just keep coming up, and then you'll create the story about, why can't I get rid of this belief and this thought? It's because you didn't do the healing part. So there are limitations to it, but oftentimes, yes, you can challenge the thought and realize, okay, is this actually true? And then change your thinking process. It's a combination of both.
What do you think, listeners and viewers? Please leave your comments via email address, risingaboveshadowsofabuse@gmail.com. Bye for now.